Howdy.
How you doing,
Hi,
babe?
babe.
Hey,
How's it going?
good.
Good. I feel like we have to figure out a way to start these off, and it's not like so chill and mellow.
Or like we don't work next door to each other in the house.
But like we're legit fun people. Like we're
Absolutely.
a hoot to be around. I'm a hoot.
No.
You're a hoot.
You're the Pisces. I'm the Sagittarius. Let's just be clear.
Yeah.
You are funny though
Yeah.
at times.
Yeah. So we got a lineup of things to talk about today, and we're never gonna let a tougher, rougher topic bring us down.
No.
But we want to showcase the reality of what this whole process looks like, set fair and reasonable expectations for ourselves.
Yeah.
And then as we explore and learn about it, report back.
Yeah, you're super fuzzy right now.
Fuzzy?
Yeah.
Daylight savings time happened.
It's not it.
I think I overslept. No? What? Are you talking about
my contacts
facial
in.
hair fuzzy? Oh.
No. I don't have my contacts in, so you are
just a blob over here.
You are. I see you. It's not outlined perfectly.
That's funny.
So you're reading. You're going to be reading.
Yeah,
today.
I'm gonna be our trail guide today. So I'm gonna be keeping us. Okay, so I thought today was Sunday.
You did.
Yeah, and I even started arguing with you. I'm like, no, daylight savings was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
In fact, it was yesterday. Because I thought we were on a whole different.
You've had extra sleep. Sadie's not. She's still on.
Yeah.
The other time. So, we're only an hour. We're Eastern Standard Time here.
Yeah. They can actually see the clock behind me. So, okay. So what we're going to be talking about today is we have a couple different bullet points, and our first one is talking about just like. This topic will always come up. We're going to a different country. We have to start thinking outside of just our nation, right?
Nation. That's funny.
I was editing a video and you kept saying nation, but you meant world.
I meant world.
And that's perfect for what we're talking about, because the reality is, we've been in a bubble. We've traveled,
our whole life.
We've traveled internationally, but that's like going to a resort. That's not going to live. That's not going for a long period of time. That's not with the people.
And being immersed in a different culture, a completely different culture.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about that. So I'm just going to lob one up for you. I want to talk a little bit about cultural lob.
You said lob.
Lob it up. Cultural sensitivity, and also awareness to this different culture that we're entering, because there's only so much you can learn from YouTube, and no matter how much we prep, there will be a shock for us.
No doubt. Culture shock. I had one, babe, when I moved to Michigan from North Carolina, from the Smoky Mountains, mind you, just outside of Asheville.
Yeah.
When I moved up here 24 years ago, it took me 6 years to actually get used to Michiganders, Detroiters, how you drive, how you talk to people. It was really hard.
Yeah.
So I don't think it will be that hard in Colombia, just because now I have a thicker, tougher skin. And
right.
Yeah. And
you're seasoned when it comes to,
right.
You're more grown compared to how you were before.
More grown.
So your ability to adapt and shift will be faster. Doesn't mean you'll like all the changes, but you'll be able to do it.
No, and we're older too. So.
Oh, I am so becoming the old man with the get off my lawn, shaking my fist. I'm getting grumpy.
That sign we just saw. What was that sign we just saw?
What sign? Oh, protected by fuck around and find out.
It's a sign that you would put in your yard.
It looks like the ADT sign, like a security company, but it says
security sign.
Protected by fuck around and find out.
Oh, it's great.
So we have to mark this one explicit, of course.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. But we are, I'm getting very set in my ways. I'm getting very comfortable with the things that I expect. I am now older than multiple generations that are, contributing to society.
Yeah.
And I'm finally seeing what the two generations before me were seeing in me. That's just the cycle, right? That's just a cycle.
It is the cycle.
But also, it's not just that generational thing. We're going to a different country where, they're
it's a different language.
We have to be respectful.
Totally.
We're the new ones there, right?
New kids on the block.
We're
the
ones that are segueing to their ways, right?
So that's quite different than how we live here. But you being a person of color,
I'll blend. I'll chameleon until I open my mouth and there's a
very
accent,
true,
right?
However, me walking down the street with you is going to be a lot safer for me, being this very pale, light-skinned white lady with red hair and blue eyes. Like, can you stick out any more than that?
There's been, a hashtag back in the day called white girl problems. And this is like,
it is a white girl
epitome of that, because you're going to be,
it's a white people problem too.
You're going to be the minority.
Absolutely.
And we've all had that a little bit, me being dark in a white area, you being female, like we've gone through some of them, but I don't think anything has prepared us for being completely in a different country. And you had mentioned that Colombia is, at least the parts we're going to, but Colombia as a whole is actually a pretty conservative country, right? Talk to me a little bit about that. It's not quite as divided, right? The U.S., we're very much we call it a two-party system, but multi-party system where we have extremes when it comes to politics, but also our own personal beliefs that follow that, right?
Yeah. Well, right now they do have a president. What is his name? Petro is his last name, I believe. He is a leftist, where typically they have a right wing leading their country. They're also, it's one religion, Catholicism, where here in America, my gosh, we're super diverse when it comes to different religions. We also are super diverse with different languages, people of color, just lots of diversity here in the States, where it's mostly Colombians. There is a large expat community in Medellin, Bogota, Cartagena, the bigger places, the places that people would rather spend more time.
Right.
Digital nomads, for instance.
Also, there's infrastructure
in those places. Medellin has a great metro system, and it's a pretty modern city. Huge, huge malls. Like in Sabaneta, where we're going to be, there's a huge shopping mall there. Like, it's not this third world country,
right,
like, we've seen in the past.
And been told that it is.
Right. However,
developing.
How to be safe there, I have times where I'm legit scared to go, knowing that I'm a tourist, and then not just a tourist, but I'm also white, and I'm a woman, and I stick out. I'm going to stick out. And I can't go out alone, right? It's really probably not going to be that safe for me to be out by myself unless I'm in a very crowded area, but I wouldn't go anywhere without you anyway. So not going out at night, and, we'll cover some of this stuff as we move forward, but just, I have to be super, super aware, just like you would be, I guess, in any area that you need to be careful.
So appearance is a thing too, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, everybody's going to have dark hair, and then, you got
and brown eyes.
Yeah. But also the clothing we wear. I mean, there's a certain level of common sense when you go anywhere.
Sure.
But especially if you're going to a country that's kind of blanket across. You mentioned that all of Colombia is relatively shares a religion, relatively shares a political view. Like, it's pretty broadcast and, across everybody, which also means their values are going to be similar across the board. So if we go in there, like, yeehaw Americans, we're going to stand out, but also become targets. Right. And so it's not about just blending. It's also really significantly about respecting their ways.
Yeah.
Right. And so blending's part of it. We want to make sure that we blend in for our own safety purposes, but also kind of taking on that culture's way of living, because that's part of it, is just immersing ourselves into what is the Colombian way.
Right. And I know part of the Colombian way is don't walk around like you're better than everybody else. They're a very proud people, and jeans, sneakers, and a t-shirt, that's the way to dress there.
Right.
Right. So I'm not going to be walking around in heels. I mean, obviously, if you're going out to a club or something like that, you're going to dress differently. But just like the average, like during the day, which thank God is how I dress anyway. I'm not somebody that wears the whole fashion trends and things like that. I just, hoodies.
Also being flashy with tech, right?
Yeah. You can't be walking around with your phone out. So
here's the thing. You can do these things, but you open yourself up to consequences.
Right.
Right. So you can totally be the person that's, totally blinged out wearing Gucci and an Apple Watch, but you have to understand that you're going to have some consequences for choosing to do that. So we are not looking for issues. We're not looking for problems. No. And frankly, we're not flashy people to begin with. But that's, for the sake of listeners and people who are thinking about doing this, some of the things we take for granted. I mean, in America, we kind of have some privilege that just won't carry over.
We have a lot of privilege here I can walk outside by myself. I can go out here on the trail by myself. I can go just about anywhere around here by myself and feel perfectly safe. Can't do that there. And that's okay. Like, I understand that the Pablo Escobar days are over, but there's a mentality that's still there. Like, you still have more than 40% of the population that lives in poverty.
Yeah.
And so if you have a fence, copper, anything, I don't care what kind of metal, it will get taken. You just have to be careful, right? Don't go north of Medellin. Don't go north of that. Like Bello, and it's spelled Bello, and that's how it's pronounced. That's north of the city of Medellin. Don't go up there unless you actually know somebody, a local that's lived there their whole life. Don't even go. There are just some places that are off limits. If you see two people on a motorcycle, actually, if I'm not mistaken, it is now illegal for a man to ride behind the driver or the rider.
Because it's team efforts, right?
Because it's a team effort. They're targeting, who they can grab a phone out of their hands or grab a bag or
have a distraction person. And yeah, exactly. And that kind of leads me into transportation, right? So, and I don't know the logistics of how this works because Uber is illegal. And yet Uber still exists. So that's an interesting thing I'm curious about diving deeper into in research to find out how is it even possible it exists and yet it's outlawed.
Like, you use the whole Uber app and everything.
It's bonkers.
But it's illegal.
It's bonkers. But you have to choose your. Okay, so I've visited Cancun, Mexico.
Same.
It's a place that is pretty darn safe for Americans. It's a touristy area, right?
So crowded, yeah.
And yet you can still get to the airport and totally be scammed on transportation.
Yep.
And now we're going to a non-touristy area where non-trusted transportation is even more important. So there are things that you have to look out for. So run down a couple of the things about transportation that are important to know.
So you have the metro, which is really great there, from my understanding.
And sanctioned.
It's like, God, less than $1, 50 cents or something, 60 cents to take. And then you have taxis, you have Ubers, and then you can hire a private driver. And if you're staying there for a while, hiring a private driver might be a good idea. And they're relatively inexpensive. If you're going to live up in the mountains somewhere and you're going to be 30, 45 minutes away from Medellin, for instance, you're going to need to hire a private driver. Owning a car there is like super, super expensive. And let me be clear, people don't obey the traffic laws at all.
Right. The requirements to get a driver's license are show up. Get your picture taken. Maybe?
Show up, get your picture taken. But I think it's also just like reading some stuff, like making sure your vision is okay. But there is no driving test there. Right. So even as a pedestrian walking around, be freaking careful. Yeah. They will run you over. Yeah.
We talked about privilege before. We're a household that we currently have 2 vehicles, right? We live in Motor City. So that's just commonplace here in Metro Detroit. And we're going to be going down to here because we both work from home, 1 vehicle because we just don't need it. And we're thinking about how much of an impact that's going to make on our lives.
Yeah, because I'm the one handing my leased Jeep over going, holy shit, how am I supposed
to When we also are going to be part-time at a place where we won't have any vehicle and we'll be completely dependent on someone else getting us from point A to point B and structuring it, right? So, yeah, it's, I'm bringing up privilege again because the fact that we have 2 vehicles, that's a privilege. Living in another country, even a fantastic area like where we're going, it's not commonplace to have a vehicle, let alone multiple vehicles. Right. So that's going to be another cultural shift for us to take into account.
And walk where we can walk. Right. We have to walk where we can walk, but you have to be careful. Obviously, if you're going to ride in an Uber, say you and I are at the airport and we need to get to our Airbnb, you're going to ride up front with that driver. I'll ride in the back.
Right.
Would you like to know why?
I know why, but yeah, tell.
If you're stopped by a police officer, because again, they're illegal, and bribery is super common in Colombia with the policia. So you're going to be his friend. And that's what he'll state, right? You guys are...
we're cruising together.
We're just cruising together.
Yep.
White girl in the back. I don't know what I would do. I would just sit there and keep my mouth shut. So bribery is a thing. Sometimes you might have to pay a cop off. But that's how they do it there. You don't ride in the back. Like for us, we would never sit in the front seat with an Uber driver unless we're out bar hopping,
or there's enough people where you have to have somebody.
Like you would have to bar. Yeah, you have too many people in the car. So, so that's what will happen there. But you do have to be careful. No matter, you don't want to get scammed. But Ubers are super cheap. Like you can get from one place to another for $2 or $3 in an Uber. Like if I were to go from here to Troy, for instance, that would cost me
right now $35.
$35. Holy shit! Seriously? That's so expensive. And down there, $5 for that distance.
Right.
Just a huge difference. So you definitely want to utilize the Ubers.
Yeah. Or you take a metro, but there's no such thing as personal space.
No personal space.
Sardines.
Yeah. Especially if it's during, when everybody's getting off from work or going to work, you're shoulder to shoulder with people and they don't, how we love our personal space here in America, right? Like don't get in. That's a thing. You're invading my space. Like stay over here. You don't need to be in my face.
We're at a time where people get offended about.
Oh God. That's a whole, yeah. Don't go down that rabbit trail.
My grumpy get off my lawn mentality is, oh gosh, don't. But even with that, if you're side by side with people, shoulder to shoulder, you're going to be feeling people, which means if you're wearing a backpack, they're going through your backpack.
They absolutely will.
You have to know your surroundings, but also to recommend it. You can do like a cross bag, or if you have a satchel style bag, you put it to where it's in your front, to where you have control over seeing.
And you hold it. Like you put your hand
and you
like
hold it. So the other thing that so I went to military school many years ago, and we had duffel bags. So it's a strap in a duffel bag. And we use those for sports and we use those for carrying our, books for class. And one of the jokes that would always happen is, somebody would come by and they'd clip it and it would fall down. But that's a real thing to where you can just clip it or cut the thing and they will literally steal the entire bag. So if you're holding your bag, you have more control over in the event of.
And they work in teams. So if you're wearing a backpack, which a lot of people do, right? You want to hold that in front. Like you want to, instead of putting it on your back, you want to put it on your front like that and like just cross your arms. Just really be
mindful,
safe, be mindful. It's common sense stuff, really. But it's common sense that you have to get used to in that kind of, like, we don't have to do that here.
So here, one of the things I'm going to shift gears a little bit. One of the things that we do is we go to networking events because you and I, very much believe that relationships are key. Building relationships in our community, because if I need something, I have somebody I can call on.
They are.
Right? And having those community connections in Columbia is going to be vital for us because we're talking about not just I need something for business, you can provide it, and vice versa. We're talking about I want to make sure I don't get ripped off on this rental.
Yes.
So we have to find the right people, make really solid
rent like a local, they say.
Yeah. So establishing those relationships with locals is going to be a really big deal.
We might have our first one, by the way.
So what I wanted you to do,
our first friend,
this is an on the spot thing.
Okay.
Is I want you to come up with like 3 or 5 really important, I call them verticals, but types of people who are connected to various things. So one, I think, is going to be who's connected on like the real estate side.
Absolutely.
Right. We're going to need somebody that we can trust in, even if it's to the point of just cycling it through them and having just an extra set of eyeballs to make sure we didn't miss something.
For sure.
But what are some other categories that having a trusted person is really going to benefit us?
Neighbors, possibly. You want to know who your neighbors are. And depending on where we are, what location we're in, right? So if we're in a more upscale neighborhood, and they have them, I don't even know how to describe this, but different spots within like a neighborhood.
Community areas?
No, it's more like an area, like a smaller area within a city. Like Sabaneta, for instance, has different smaller areas, and they're classed differently, and they're done by numbers. So whatever
zones, right?
Zones, you can call it zones, and so that's how you're going to know who and it's wealthier areas, better to do areas, whatever you want to call it. And if you look up in the mountains a little bit, still in Sabaneta, but still up on a steep hill, you'll be able to kind of notice that too. And so just like anywhere else where you want to live, you want to choose your neighborhood, your area. You want to, when you're buying a house, you want to make sure you're living in a good school district if you have children and that kind of stuff. And it's sort of the same thing there, but we don't know what those are yet. Learning.
When I moved here, until you moved in, I didn't know any of my neighbors. Not a single one.
Again, I'm the Sagittarius in this family.
I had no desire to meet anybody here. Just do my
social
thing,
one.
Do my thing. And now I'm on the HOA board, and we know
a lot of neighbors.
One.
Yeah, it's good to know your neighbors.
Yeah. What other categories? So neighborhood connections, real estate connections. What about somebody around like finance or banking or legality? So
you will have your cedula here very shortly, right? We're going to We're going to drive over to Illinois, to Chicago.
4.5 hour drive.
And get yours. But with that, in order to open a bank account there, you need to have a cedula, which you'll have one.
Right.
So getting to know who those bankers are, I think that's a really big deal. We just found out, I think we talked about this in our last podcast, that now they are lending money to foreigners if we have good credit.
To citizens who live abroad.
To citizens who live abroad. Yeah.
Based off of their U.S. credit. So, for example, I'm an American citizen. I'm also a Colombian citizen. As a Colombian citizen who lives in America, I can start establishing and getting loans based off my U.S. credit.
But that just changed. It was never like that before. That
wasn't the case before.
It was like you went down there to Colombia and you had to start fresh. Like your credit
or have a pocket full of cash and just pay cash for everything.
Correct. Yeah. Cash is king still there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of changing. So you would want to have a really, decent relationship with your bank, whoever you want that to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that goes on our list for our visit is what are the major banks, go in and chat with somebody and explain a little bit of what our plans are, and then find somebody that's going to kind of be on our side.
Right.
Be an ace up our sleeve.
Yeah. It's even your local grocery store. For me personally, I'm all about buying local, supporting your local people. So who are those? Are we going to go to a supermercado, or are we going to just go to a local mercado?
Or combination, and what for? And
yeah. Oh my God, they're getting a IKEA down there. So and Amazon is there too. So I'm pretty excited that I don't have to leave everything American.
Any other categories you can think of off the top of your head? I mean, there's more. We know there's more.
There's tons more.
I kind of threw that at you just to see.
Your doctor, your healthcare, like who your doctor is.
Yeah.
You're going to want to know. And you're going to want somebody that knows how to speak English, as far as your doctor goes. I think for me, that would be super important. I want to know what's going on with my body, how my health is, and I want them to be able to understand me. And, and I am learning the language, no question about it. But you still want to be able to, I would think, you don't want to go to somebody that speaks nothing but Spanish and you're not going to understand if it has to do with your health care. It's
going to be a struggle on translation.
Huge struggle. Yeah.
Speaking of Spanish, so language as a bridge is a topic you wanted to talk about a little bit. And we got basically one more topic. We want to do an update on Sadie also. But let's talk a little bit about language. So you are taking your Spanish lessons. So we're different people.
I'm attempting.
And we bring this up every time. You're the person that plans things out, has a structure, knows X amount of days until your due date, and spaces that out accordingly.
Yeah.
Right. So your goal is start learning Spanish now so that you can be well versed.
Well, it takes me time to learn things.
Well, it takes me time to learn things too. But the way my brain works is it has to be incentivized.
You're going to be incentivized, babe.
And the closer the deadline is, the more productive and efficient I am and the better I perform.
Really?
Doesn't mean I can start taking Spanish a week before we leave. It just means that, 3 months might be too long for my brain to say, I'm actually going to commit to this, where, 12 weeks or 8 weeks might be closer or more up my speed. But,
y'all, I think he's lost it a little bit. You're going to rely on me is what's going to happen.
And that's highly possible too.
You're going to rely on me.
Yeah. My white girl wife is going to be doing all the translation, and I'm
with a super huge, ginormous Southern accent attached to every Spanish word that comes out of my mouth. It's terrible.
But it helps starting to bridge that, because not the way you're taking lessons, you have an app, but you're also working directly with somebody who is Colombian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, who's Colombian. And so you're kind of learning a little bit cultural wise, a little bit, about how Spanish is spoken there, as opposed to somebody who was teaching Spanish from Mexico, right?
Different. Absolutely. There's different dialects. Yeah,
there's different dialects. So, I mean, and that's the core of that is not only to be able to get around and be independent, but also really immerse yourself in the culture.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to learn any language, is to be submersed in it, but to be able to go in knowing at least how to order your food, or, do you know the difference between, fish and meat or chicken? Do you know what baño means for bathroom? Just these things that we take for granted here in the States with English. I want to know how to ask, what does comprar mean? I'm just now starting to learn how to roll my R's, by the way. That just happened last week. It was weird.
You've been practicing.
Still, yeah, but I'm still not. It's not. It doesn't happen every single time, but it just kind of happened. So I'm finding the more I use it. So one of the reasons I wanted you to go ahead and start taking lessons is so that we could talk to each other in Spanish every day. Even if it was just to sit down and me pretend to be a waiter, like what, do some role play.
Role play.
We could do some role play. Anyway, so yeah.
This one's definitely being marked as explicit.
But yeah, so just being able to talk to each other every day would help tremendously. And then I met this 80-year-old lady at the farmer's market. So, I go to the farmer's market every Saturday, and I make and sell candles to help raise money for A Courageous Voice, the nonprofit that I have. She's 80 years old. She bakes and sells goods. She is she's a translator from Spanish and English, which was so cool. So she is Hispanic and Native American. She is quicker, faster, all of it than I am. Like, just amazing lady. She's called me twice today already. So when she called this last time, I said, hola, ¿cómo está? And then she said, ¿cómo está, Amy? And then went into something else. I said, yep, don't understand that, but it's so fast. And I know that in Medellin, it's spoken faster than in Bogota, for instance. And then in Cartagena, they speak Spanish really fast. So it's November, babe.
I got you. Okay, let's do a quick update on Sadie.
You moved away from that really fast.
Yeah.
Said, yeah.
Yeah. So Sadie's story has been interesting.
Poor Sadie.
She has some stuff going on. Maybe, potentially. Break it down for us.
No, I think she does. Yeah, so we're waiting on the 5th test result to see if it's positive for heartworm. And I think the reason all of these tests are coming back a little wonky is because she has been on HeartGuard every single month for the 2 years that we've had her. So it's unfortunate. But I guess now that we know HeartGuard is not 100%, and they're finding that there's a resistance to the drug now too.
So she's had 2 positive, 1 negative, and 1 essentially inconclusive, but just not positive or negative, just not quite there. And so we're on the 5th, and that's between 2 different labs. So who do in fact test differently. So it's not like they're doing the same thing over and over. So there's several variables happening there, but we're kind of just waiting today for the results that were submitted. It's Friday, right?
Right.
And I think you're probably right. I think she probably has it, but it's at such an early. So the way they test for heartworm is the females create something like a protein or an enzyme that is flagged, right? And so that means it has to be grown enough that it's emitting that and causing the animal system to say there's something going on here, right? That's what they're measuring. They're not actually measuring and finding out the heartworm itself, but the results of heartworm being present.
Right.
And so for there to be positive and negative, to me, just my logical brain, I don't know anything about parasites and animal issues, but my logical brain says it's there, but it's there at such an early stage that it's coming up almost like partially detectable, not full blown, and not definitely not there. And with also finding out that the specific manufacturer, there's a resistance that's being developed, also tells me that she's not fully protected with that brand. And she's young. She's 4 years old. 3 years old, 4 years old, 4 years old. So
I think.
Yeah. So your dog that's 10 or 11 years old who's been on HeartGuard forever, may not have the same issues or resistance buildup because they started so much longer ago. So it may have been a different formula then. So there's just a lot of logistics, and it's frustrating to not have a conclusive, she's in the clear, or we have to do some treatment. So that's kind of what we're waiting for today. And,
if they do the treatment, because she is so early, does she have to go through the whole thing? Like, we just don't know. So that's kind of where we're at with Sadie.
And so we've been essentially role playing with her by not letting her play too heavily, by taking her outside on a leash rather than
off leash
like she's been trained to do, because too much movement causes her heart rate to go up, which once they're dying through treatment is what can cause a complication.
Stroke.
So we're trying to kind of condition her that we now live a chill lifestyle in the event that we do have to do treatment with her. And my hope is that if she does come back positive, or positive enough that we want to do a treatment, that it's a short micro treatment as opposed to the entire full gauntlet.
I mean, yeah, who knows? I don't know.
But I don't know if it works logically like that.
Who knows?
So we'll find out. Our doctor's been amazing, super thorough. Like, the transcripts on these emails are paragraphs long because they're just giving us all the information we need to really
understand.
Phone calls. Yeah, to understand the best that we can.
Yeah, we get phone calls Quite often.
Super thankful that we've made a connection with our local
exactly.
vet that's just been rock stars.
Yeah, and understanding the area where we live in, and the mosquitoes were so bad this past summer.
Yeah.
Really, really bad. But I'm going to jump back and recap over something. I think we missed some stuff here. I wanted to go back to the safety portion for Colombia. Don't go out at night by yourself, especially if you're like a white foreigner. Don't do that. Don't go into places that are not lit well. If it's a crowded place, if you're going out to a bar and you're meeting a bunch of your friends or whatever, and tons of people are going to be there, fine. But don't be doing stuff by yourself, especially if you're a female. You got to be extra careful. Don't wear Apple Watches. Don't have your phone out. Don't wear flashy jewelry, gold chains, things like that. Even my wedding ring, I'm going to purchase a silicone wedding band. I'm not going to wear my beautiful band that you bought me.
I don't even wear my ring. I wear my silicone 99% of the time. And if I'm wearing a button-up shirt, I'll put the other one on. But aside from that, this is what I wear every day. And the things you're outlining, I didn't mean to really cut you off there, but the things you're outlining are just be aware of. You could be going to anywhere. You could be going to Paris. You could be going to any country. And the idea that we're trying to stress is respect that area.
Which means you got to research it. You got to know what you're walking into.
But adapt. If you're in an area where general crime rates are elevated compared to where you're coming from.
In Europe, pickpocketing is super common in Europe.
Then don't set yourself up for failure. Right. And you're just highlighting some of the, it's not a scare tactic. It's not you're going to Colombia's a place that you should be in fear. That's not the idea. Right. It's just don't put yourself in a situation where fear will then inevitably happen.
Do your research. I cannot stress that enough. Really research the country that you're going to, the area that you're going to be staying in, and knowing some of the language is going to help you. If you're a digital nomad, and you're going to work off of your laptop and you're going to go walk to a co-working space, don't leave don't work outside. Don't go a lot of patio tables will be sitting outside at a restaurant or something. Don't do that. Don't pop your laptop open like we could here in the States.
Or can somebody just walk by?
Somebody will walk by a motorcycle. They will hold you up. They will actually point a gun at you in Medellin or different places in Colombia, and they will be like, give me all your stuff.
But guess what? If you don't do that, you're not the one that's on the other end of that. You're not a target.
If you're just sitting there without your laptop and you're just having a conversation, don't even take your backpack unless you're going straight to the co-working space and then home. If you have to get out of a Airbnb or apartment or wherever you're staying, just really think about, be mindful. But if you're not doing your research, don't just go to a country not having learned anything about it before you go.
Right.
And a lot of people do that. Especially younger folks. They just, oh my God, I'm so excited. And that's great. But know what you're walking into as best you can.
Great final thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, until next week.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Cheers.